It's not a granny square, but it uses the same kind of stitches. Boop-a-da-doop. It's a starburst. And instead of just showing you as I'm crocheting how to make this, I figured this would be a good project to show you how to read crochet. Because if you understand how the stitches are made, you can look at a picture of something or look at a physical example of some crochet and recreate it. Very useful as a cosplayer. You can look at a pattern of lace, or like with Sarah Sanderson, I realized her sleeves were fishnet. I could crochet that. If you have a physical piece of crochet that you want to reproduce, we used crochet doilies as part of our wedding decor at the reception. I needed one more. I just simply copied the pattern from one that I already had. If you know how to read a diagram pattern for crochet, this is going to be easier. So let's take a closer look at this blanket. All right, here is the center. This is where I started. If you know how to crochet a granny square, you know how to begin this. I did 5 chains, or you do however many works for you with your tension and hook size. Then you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters. Looking closer at it, there's 1, 2, 3 pillars in each of these clusters. Common sense dictates that these are probably going to be double crochets. First of all, it's me. I'm lazy. Double crochets go faster. That's the first round. 4 clusters of 3 double crochets, and because there's a nice space in here, you know there's at least 1 chain. Then we need to look at the next round. Again, this is exactly like how a granny square starts. I have 4 corners, 2 clusters into each chain space. 3 double crochets equal 1 cluster. Yes, there are chain spaces after every 3 double crochets. Next round. This is where we start to get a little bit more interesting. Here we are. Corner, 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 corner. In every chain space, there is a corner. Now we're starting to establish that starburst pattern. It's no longer a square. Go out to the next row. Now we're starting to put in sides. That is a side. A single cluster, not in a corner. Corner in the corner. Now we have a side being developed. Corner in the corner. Side, corner in a corner. Side, corner in a corner. Or if you don't want to think of these as corners, then yes, it's 2 clusters. 2 clusters, 1 cluster in a chain space, 2 clusters and 2 clusters. Oh, and you can really see this camera angle really nice. All of the 2 clusters going out. 1 cluster in the chain space, 2 clusters on top of the 2 clusters, 1 cluster in the chain space all the way around. Next we have the blue. 2 clusters in the 2 clusters. Then on either side of this single cluster, again the chain spaces, but there's no chain space here. These are very tight together. That helps pull those stitches together to create very similar to a wave pattern that you have peaks and valleys. This creates one of those valleys that will ripple all the way out so that we have it at the edge as well. 2 clusters in the 2 cluster, 1 cluster on either side of the single cluster, no chain space. 2 clusters in the 2 cluster, and that just goes all the way around. Repeat. Next round. 2 clusters in with the 2 clusters, where we had the single cluster with no chain space, single cluster, oh, but I can see that the next round has a cluster into that. There's more space here. there's probably a chain space there. 2 clusters into the 2 clusters, 1 cluster on either side of the previous single clusters, but there's a chain space there this time. 2 clusters into the 2 cluster, and it goes all the way around doing the same thing. Next round, 2 clusters into the 2 clusters. That's standard. I have another chain space here. The sides are getting longer. Single cluster into that chain space. I've had 2 rounds where I don't have anything in the middle here. Now, to be able to increase, I'm putting one in. Single cluster on the side, 2 clusters where there was 2 clusters. Here are the 2 peaks of the wave, side, side, valley. And this is how the pattern keeps repeating. When we have 1 in the middle, then we have 2 without, 1 in the middle, 2 without, 1 in the middle. The first one, after you have 1 in the middle, there's no chain space. Then a chain space as you're trying to create more room for when you put in that other cluster. That's the pattern, and it just keeps going. Like any granny square pattern, once you've established it, it's fairly simple to follow as you expand. Like a wave pattern though, having the change of color really helps emphasize the peaks and the valleys, or in this case, the starburst pattern. You can keep going out and out and out and out until it is the desired size, or you run out of yarn, like I did. Yes, it can take a little bit of practice before you're really good at reading crochet. But once you understand how crochet works and what the stitches look like, it's not too hard. If you need some practice, crochet from one of those diagram patterns. Well, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked it and learned something. If you do like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see some of the other things that I crochet, make sure you subscribe. Until next time, have fun and be creative. I have a friend who's expecting their little one might get this blanket, but keep it secret.